House approves emergency sale of munitions to Israel. Massive Russian strikes killed at least 30 across Ukraine. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jessica Lee, and this is World Today. The United States yesterday announced the approval of a $147.5 million sale of 155 millimeter high explosive artillery munitions and related equipment to Israel under an emergency provision that waives the usual congressional review. The same provision was used earlier this month to approve the sale of nearly 14,000 rounds of 120 millimeter tank ammunition to Israel, which is battling Hamas in Gaza in a highly destructive conflict that began in October. The U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency said in a statement, Israel requested that 155 millimeter fuses, primers and charges be added to previous foreign military sale cases, increasing their estimated total cost from $96.51 million to $147.5 million and requiring a new notification. The United States has been providing military aid to Israel, which has carried out a relentless campaign in Gaza that has killed at least 21,507 people, mostly women and children. The civilian deaths and the destruction in Gaza from the Israeli campaign has caused a growing international outcry, and the United States' international image has taken a beating over its continued backing for Israel. Tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians in Gaza have been forced to flee again towards the south after Israel intensified assaults in the center of the besieged enclave, killing around 200 people in the past 24 hours. Now, the Israeli occupation forces said it was expanding the operation in the Khan Yunis area of Gaza, previously sheltering hundreds of thousands of people displaced from the north, initially the focus of Israel's ground assault. Addressing the UN Security Council on Friday, the Palestinian UN envoy Majid Bamia said the wide-scale destruction of Gaza by Israeli operations has made it clear their sole goal is forced displacement. The UN Humanitarian Office said an estimated 100,000 more displaced people had arrived in the already teeming southern border city of Rafah in recent days, following the intensification of fighting around both Deir el-Balah in central Gaza and Khan Yunis to its south. Earlier this week, Israeli forces ordered Palestinians out of the crowded central districts of Bureij, Maghazi and Nuseirat as tanks advanced from the north and east. Attacks on those areas have intensified in recent days, with many residents fleeing to the already crowded Deir el-Balah, pitching makeshift tents made from sheets of plastic on whatever open ground they could find. Meanwhile, Israeli authorities have reported approximately 1,200 of its soldiers were killed by Hamas's assaults. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant called the warfare in central and southern Gaza an essential stage of Israel's mission to destroy its foe, Hamas. Gaza health authorities estimate the Palestinians' death toll has risen to over 21,500, about 1% of Gaza's population, with approximately 56,000 civilians injured. Now, thousands more bodies are feared to be buried in the ruins of obliterated neighborhoods. Since the beginning of the war, Israeli occupation forces have laid much of Gaza Strip to waste. Nearly all of its 2.3 million people have fled their homes at least once, and many are now on the move again. The displaced have been facing severe shortages of essentials like food, clean water, and medical supplies. Russia launched a massive air attack over Ukraine on Friday, killing at least 30 people and wounding over 100 across the country in the fiercest assault since the first days of the war nearly 2 years ago. Ukrainian officials said schools, a maternity hospital, shopping arcades and blocks of flats were among the buildings hit in the barrage. The attacks, which also saw a Russian missile passing through Polish airspace, triggered international condemnation and fresh promises of military support to Ukraine, which has been fighting off invading Russian troops since late February 2022. Ukraine's military estimated that Russia had fired 158 missiles and drones on Ukraine, and 114 of them had been destroyed. Air Force spokesman Yuri Ignat said this was a record number of missiles and the most massive missile attack of the war, excluding the early days of constant bombardment. Now, Russia tried to overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses across most major cities, launching a wave of SAHIH attack drones, followed by missiles of numerous types fired from planes and from Russian-controlled territory. Meanwhile, a senior UN official condemned Russia or its appalling assaults on Ukraine involving some 158 missiles and drones, which Kiev blamed for the deaths of at least 30 people.
Today's appalling assaults were only the latest in series. Mr. President, regrettably, today's appalling assaults were only the latest in series of escalating attacks by the Russian Federation.
Speaking at the UN building, he said the Secretary General unequivocally condemns in the strongest possible terms the appalling attacks on cities and towns across Ukraine. He said attacks against civilians and civilian infrastructure violate international humanitarian law, are unacceptable and must stop immediately. The attacks, which also saw a Russian missile passing through Polish airspace, triggered international condemnation and fresh promises of military support to Ukraine, which has been fighting off invading Russian troops since late February 2022. The Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, blamed the toll on the misuse of Ukraine's air defense systems, the use of which has led to the deaths of civilians. Turkish authorities detained 29 people suspected of having ties to Daesh group in operations across 9 provinces, including Istanbul and Ankara. Now, this was announced by Turkish Interior Minister Ali Yerlikaya yesterday. Citing security sources, Turkey's state-run Anadolu news agency said 3 other suspects linked to the 29 detainees had been captured in the operations as well. It said the 3 were senior members of Daesh group and added that 1 was planning to attack on the Iraqi embassy in Ankara. Suspects captured in Operation Heroes 37 on Friday were collecting information on churches and synagogues in Istanbul, Yerlikaya said on social media platform X, adding that 39 addresses were raided. Authorities have ramped up operations against Daesh and Kurdish militants after Kurdish militants detonated a bomb near government buildings in Ankara on the 1st of October. Still to come, students protest Belgrade polls results.
Siren amaran awal banjir ialah sistem pengesan kenaikan aras air secara automatik. Sistem ini dilengkapi dengan pembesar suara akustik, sistem pemantauan bersepadu dan menggunakan sistem solar sepenuhnya. Selain itu, ia juga berupaya memberi arahan daripada Pusat Kawalan Program Ramalan dan Amaran Banjir Negara ke stesen siren dengan kaedah voice activation. Keupayaan bunyi siren ini boleh menjangkaui 1 hingga 2 kilometer bergantung kepada keadaan topografi setempat. Terdapat 2 jenis siren. Pertama, bunyi siren amaran.
Amaran. Air sungai telah melebihi aras amaran.
Semboyannya kedengaran apabila air sungai melepasi aras amaran dan penduduk diminta bersiap sedia untuk berpindah. Kedua, bunyi siren bahaya.
Bahaya. Air sungai telah melebihi aras bahaya.
Ia diaktifkan setelah air sungai melepasi aras bahaya dan penduduk diminta untuk berpindah serta-merta. Sistem siren amaran awal banjir memberi manfaat kepada masyarakat bersiap siaga menghadapi bencana banjir.
Now, heavy rainfall has led to floods in parts of northern and eastern Germany, with more rain expected in the next few days. Now, many areas in Germany have also seen heavy precipitation for several days in a row. Around the capital of the German state, Saxony-Anhalt, Magdeburg, the water level of the river Elbe has risen, with the city expecting a flood peak of 5.25 meters. In Pretzien, 24 kilometers east of Magdeburg, the river has flooded meadows and fields. The city of Magdeburg doesn't consider the floods to be a huge danger, but has asked people to refrain from entering the dikes. The flood peak measured during the 2013 European floods in Magdeburg was 7.47 meters. In the northern German state of Lower Saxony, police has closed several streets due to the flooding. Now, more than 100,000 emergency officers are working, with some areas needing to be evacuated, including a safari park which saw over 200 smaller animals such as monkeys and meerkats evacuated in the last days. The hundreds of Serbian protesters, mostly students, gathered on Friday in central Belgrade and blocked a key intersection in the capital to protest alleged electoral fraud. Now, it marked the first planned day-long blockade since the 17th of December parliamentary and local elections, in which President Alexander Vucic's party said it secured a commanding victory. Opposition groups have contested the results as the main opposition coalition, Serbia Against Violence, alleged that ethnic Serbian voters from neighbouring Bosnia had been allowed to cast ballots illegally in the capital. International observers also reported irregularities, while several Western nations voiced concern over the electoral process. The students are calling for the election results to be annulled and new votes be held. Since the election, protesters have erected sporadic roadblocks in Belgrade. The protests culminated last Sunday when demonstrators tried to storm Belgrade City Hall, with police pushing them back with pepper spray. Argentine pharmacists on Friday took to the streets opposing changes to regulation on the sale of medicines as proposed by the new government of radical libertarian President Javier Milei. Pharmacists gathered outside a court in Buenos Aires, where they filed an appeal to stop a presidential decree which proposes more than 300 measures to deregulate the South American country's ailing economy. The proposed reform would allow the so-called over-the-counter or OTC drugs and specialty pharmaceuticals to be sold outside pharmacies and enable their sale to non-registered personnel. Protesting pharmacists said the new measure was an encroachment on their profession and that it would undermine public safety.
Liberar la venta de medicamentos de venta libre en cualquier lugar significa que vas a poder, si prospera el DNU, vas a poder comprar medicamentos en una carnicería, en una pizzería, en una guardería, en un taller mecánico, donde sea, porque está liberado. Los manteros en la calle van a poder vender medicamentos. O sea, eso primero está mal porque atenta contra la seguridad y la salud pública, ¿no es cierto?
Several demonstrations against Milei's agenda have taken place since he took office on the 10th of December. Now, in an Indian town known as a flashpoint for sectarian violence, workers are crafting the final touches on a divisive temple that has come to symbolize the country's rising tide of Hindu nationalism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will next month inaugurate Ayodhya's new shrine to Lord Ram on a site where a mosque once stood before it was torn down by Hindu zealots more than 3 decades ago. Muslim residents of the city, remembering the deadly riots that accompanied the demolition, have been wary of its renewed atmosphere of religious fervour. But for many more, the project is both a means of restoring Ayodhya to the glory of its depiction in ancient Hindu texts and proof of Modi's commitment to defending India's majority faith just months ahead of national elections. Artisans were toiling on top of bamboo scaffolds on Friday to finish ornamental details on the main structure of the imposing shrine, which will stand 50 meters tall at its highest point. With a price tag of an estimated $240 million, its builders expect tens of millions of Hindus pilgrims to visit the temple each year. Next up in sports, late strike sends Al Hilal 10 points clear in Saudi Pro League. Stay with us. Now, the Football Association of Malaysia, or FAM, have made 3 international tournaments involving the Harimau Malaya and the Under-23 squads their main focus next year. Now, FAM President Dato' Hamidi Muhammad Amin said the Harimau Malaya team, under the guidance of South Korean coach Kim Pang-gon, have 2 crucial tournaments, namely the 2023 Asian Cup Finals in Doha, Qatar next month and the 2026 World Cup 2027 Asian Cup qualifiers. Of the 2 tournaments, Dato' Hamidin said the World Cup or Asian Cup qualifiers would be the most important, as Malaysia's target is to make the 3rd qualifying round for the first time, thus confirming their place in the 2027 Asian Cup and being a step closer to achieving the dream of all Malaysians: play in the World Cup. Now, Malaysia currently lead Group D of the 2026 World Cup 2027 Asian Cup with 6 points after 2 wins. Meanwhile, Dato' Hamidin said the national under-23 team under coach Juan Torres Garrido will be competing in the Asian Football Confederation, or AFC, under-23 Asian Cup in Doha, Qatar next April, which offers 3 slots for the 2024 Paris Olympics. Now, aware of the huge task awaiting them in all 3 tournaments, he said FAM will give maximum support to both teams and, if financially feasible, send the national under-23 squad overseas for exposure. Al Hilal left it late to win 2-0 at Al SAHIH and moved 10 points clear of Al Nassr at the top of the Saudi Pro League table on Friday. Now, it was Al Hilal's 17th win of the season to just 2 draws, as they stretched their standings lead over Cristiano Ronaldo's 2nd place Al Nassr. Al Hilal dominated the first half with almost 3/4 of the possession and an equal share of the attempts on goal. But at the 45th minute mark, it was goalless. It was a similar story in the second half after Al Fayed goalkeeper Vladimir Stojkovic had gone off injured to be replaced by Ahmed Al Qasir. Then came the breakthrough, and few on the away team cared that it was not the most attractive of goals. Ruben Neves floated a free kick over to the right of the area. Sergei Milinkovic-Savic headed to the near post, and Ali Al-Bulaihi bundled the ball in. Al Hilal coach Jorge Jesus and his men could finally let out a sigh of relief, especially after Alexander Mitrovic shot home from the spot on 101 minutes, and another victory was secured. Meanwhile, Frank Kessie converted a stoppage time penalty kick to give Al Ahly a 1-0 win over Al Khalij. The team spent more than 90 minutes trading chances, with neither side able to get an advantage until Khalij midfielder Ivo Rodriguez was whistled for tripping Ali defenseman Roger Ibanez in the 18-yard box. Replays appear to show the Rodriguez trip was unintentional, but Al Ahly was awarded a penalty kick that Kessie easily sent past Khalij keeper Ibrahim Sehic in the 99th minute. The win was Al Ahly's 3rd in a row and moved them within 3 points of second place Al Nassr in the Saudi Pro League standings. Now, Manchester City have not had the ideal start in their bid for an unprecedented 4th straight Premier League trophy. But manager Pep Guardiola said that they were up for the challenge with rich experience from their previous title runs. Now, City are fourth in the standings with a game in hand after just 2 wins in their last 7 matches, and they trail league leaders Liverpool by 5 points. City face bottom side Sheffield United today, a team they have beaten in all 6 Premier League meetings. But Erling Haaland is still unavailable along with Kevin De Bruyne, Jeremy Doku and John Stones. Haaland, the league's top scorer with 14 goals, has not played since the start of December and has missed City's last 6 games in all competitions.
Yeah, in the lower points, the lower teams, we are in the bottom as well, and they get results, so yeah. So maybe last previous seasons didn't happen much, but this season it's a common for all the teams. They're struggling. All of us, we're struggling to get the results with a comfortably way. So that means how tough it is.
City finished 2023 with 5 trophies, having won the FIFA Club World Cup earlier this month to add to their treble from last season and the UEFA Super Cup in August. But Guardiola said the year could still have been better. Real Madrid announced that manager Carlo Ancelotti has agreed to extend his contract until 2026. Now, this was announced by the La Liga club in a statement on Friday. Ancelotti has been at Real since 2021, having previously managed the club from 2013 to 2015. The Italian has won 1 league title with Real, along with 2 Champions League trophies and 2 Club World Cups. Real Madrid said the club and the coach have agreed to extend their contract until 30th of June 2026. Now, his contract was due to expire in 2024, and this extension ends speculation that Ancelotti would take over as manager of Brazil. In March of this year, then Brazilian FA or CBF president Ednaldo Rodrigues told Reuters that Ancelotti was his main target for the position of the national team coach. Let's take a look at tennis. Cameron Norrie and Katie Boulter handed Britain a 2-1 win over hosts Australia on the opening day of the United Cup Mixed Team Tournament yesterday, as the new tennis season began after a short break with the focus on next month's Australian Open. Meanwhile, Alejandro Davidovich Fokina guided Spain to a 2-1 victory over Brazil on the opening day of the United Cup Mixed Team event. Ties in Sydney. United Cup debutant Davidovich Fokina earlier put Spain up 1-0 by defeating Thiago Seboth. Peruvians brawl to settle all scores before the new year. That and more in this week's Offbeat segment. Dressed in military uniform and wearing sashes, dozens of revelers known as Els and Farinats, or those covered in flour, staged a mock messy coup in the small Spanish town of Ibi on Thursday, hurling flour and eggs during the annual festival. Els and Farinats goes back over 2 centuries, taking place every year on the 28th of December to mark the Day of the Holy Innocents. The day kicks off with Els and Farinats taking over the mayor's office and establishing absurd laws as they confront the al oposicio, or the opposition, with an explosion of flowers and eggs. Now, people who break the laws are fined in real money, which is then given to charity.
Bueno, avui a Ibi lo que toca és donar-li el poder als nostres enfarinats, que tenen el poder des que ix el sol fins a que se'n va. I després pues, vindrà l'oposició perquè el que vol és agafar el poder ells. A mi no em queda més remei que donar-los el poder.
The annual Takanakyu Festival in Peru near the city of Cusco brought together hundreds of costume competitors earlier this week to participate in the traditional fighting ritual aimed at settling old scores before the year's end. Now, the event purports to serve as a form of community justice to quell simmering disputes between residents, thus allowing participants to start the new year in peace. Judges and referees are on hand to declare the winners in fights stemming from legal matters to stolen lovers. The confrontations are supervised by local authorities, and referees mediate their bare-knuckle free-kicking brawls, which are designed to allow people to let go of anger from personal or economic problems. Takanakyu combines the native words of take, meaning fight, and nakyu, meaning mutual, and is celebrated yearly. Grammy-winning Colombian singer Shakira, one of the world's top-selling musicians, has been immortalized in her famous belly dancing pose in a giant bronze statue in her home city of Barranquilla. The city's mayor, Jaime Pumarejo, unveiled the 6.5-meter sculpture by artist Yino Marquez in a park along the banks of the Magdalena River in the company of the singer's parents.
Además, un día especial para Barranquilla porque esto representa, como le dijimos, no solo un homenaje a Shakira, sino es un aliciente para toda niña y joven barranquillera y caribeña de saber que sí se puede soñar en grande, que eso que ella se imaginó fue superado, que no solo se convirtió en la mejor cantautora de habla hispana, sino que de manera autodidacta se enseñó a hablar inglés y hoy nos demuestra que se pueden hacer grandes gestas desde el Caribe colombiano.
The sculpture shows the long curly-haired singer belly dancing with her arms overhead in a sheer skirt with shiny aluminum decoration. A plaque praises the singer, who won 3 2023 Latin Grammy Awards, and cites her charity, Pies Descalzos, Spanish for bare feet, for early childhood development. And that ends our bulletin today. Wrapping up with a recap of our top story, U.S. approves emergency sale of munitions to Israel. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm Jessica Lee, Malaysia Madani, tekad perpaduan penuhi harapan.